when we thought about trip actions initially, we did assume competition. We did assume a complicated journey. We did assume challenges. We assumed a lot. We did not assume that there would be a year or even longer than that when people look up in the sky, there would be no airplanes. That we did not account for. It's true that as a travel company, our revenue went down to zero. But all companies got impacted, maybe except for Zoom. But they all got impacted, and we need to help them. Why? Because that's what we do. We put the users in the center. We focus on them. We want to give them the best service, the best experience, because that's how we win as a company. Technologies have advantages and disadvantages. Do not reject them because they have disadvantages. If you do, you might miss the biggest technology. For example, LLMs is the biggest technology revolution for this decade. You cannot just reject it because it has some problems. Always embrace the new technologies, be familiar with the limitations, and then come up with solutions. Be creative, read about it, talk to colleagues, adopt some open source projects, etc. But do not ignore it because you will hurt yourself and your company.
Welcome to the new automation mindset where AI, automation, and integration come together. I'm your host, Markus Zirn, and as Chief Strategy Officer and part of the founding executive team at Workato, it is my mission to find these top innovators in AI, automation, and integration and share their journeys with all of you. Today, I'm excited to have as my guest Ilan Twig, CTO and co-founder of Navan. And so for the ones who don't know yet, Navan is an awesome travel and expense management solution. And it actually has grown into one of the largest in the world. We use Navan at Workato, and it's a real joy to see how well it works. It really does. And so in the new automation mindset book, we talk about the importance of being adaptable. Actually, one of the words we use is anti-fragility. I like that one. And so the journey of Navan is actually in one of the chapters in the book, chapter 19. We put it in as a sample story. So we're really in for an inspirational treat today to hear from the co-founder himself about that story. So Ilan, you co-founded Navan. I think back then it was called Trip Actions in 2015. And so in the beginning, it was all about travel. And then you were rolling in expense management as an adjacent offering, and then COVID happened. All right, so tell us about this experience. So we now today we know it's a happy ending, but at the moment, I mean, it must have been gut wrenching. I mean, you're in the travel business. COVID happened. Like, what was that like? Like, how did you deal with that unexpected situation?
Yeah, first, thanks for having me on the show, and thanks for the kind words. I wouldn't label it or declare victory and say it's a happy ending yet. It's a long journey, and yes, it feels like we managed to overcome this big mountain that we had called COVID. But it is this is the life of a startup or companies that want to remain great. It's from one mountain to the other, from one mountain to the other, and you never know how big the next one is going to look like. But you know that it's going to wait for you. It will come, which is great. Like this is what this journey is all about. And if you choose this path, that's what's waiting for you. I have to say that when we thought about trip actions initially, we did assume competition. We did assume mountains. Where we did assume a complicated journey. We did assume challenges. We assumed a lot. We did not assume that there would be a year or even longer than that when people look up in the sky, there would be no airplanes. That we did not account for. So let me roll back a little bit and share more about that. From the very beginning, when Ariel and I just started to think about having a company together, we didn't even think about travel at that point. We knew that we're going to focus on the user. We knew that it's going to be a product, a service that puts the user in the center. That's how you win. You win by experience. You win by service. You have to win over the user. If you think about all of the big consumer products, web browser, you cannot force users to use your browser. You can just make it better, faster, lighter weight, consume less memory, be more, support more things, and then. So that was our philosophy. And we knew that if we attach revenue to usage, it will keep us on our toes. It will focus the company to always think about the user and the user experience to create the best, when we started, travel program, best booking tool, best itinerary management, best support when you get stuck on the go and you need someone to save you because you promised your spouse that you're going to make it by Friday. So by the way, you mentioned expense, and it's true. We announced and launched expense in February of 2020, about 1 month before the declared shelter in place in California, when the whole thing really started. That's when we announced expense. It's obviously a new product line. It requires a lot of investment, engineering, product, launch, marketing, sales. It's a complete operation. And it almost became very like a straightforward decision to put it on hold. Like, who is going to expense now? And the first smart decision that we did, that I think marked the let's figure it out and let's manage the situation. Let's start to take ownership on the situation as opposed to be victims. By the way, both my co-founder, Ariel Cohen, which is the CEO, and I, if there's something that we have a major allergy towards, is when people victimize themselves, and that including us. Yes, we didn't choose to have the virus, but okay, there's a virus and there's no travel. There's so many things that you can do, which I will elaborate on. So the first thing that we decided is to quadruple the investment on expense. Literally, we made it 4 times bigger. And why? Because we realized that very quickly there's going to be different type of expenses that did not exist prior to COVID. Suddenly, most employees had to expense stuff. For example, Wi-Fi, or to buy a webcam, to set up your at-home working environment, like home office, to buy a proper desk or a chair. And I know that a lot of companies did allow employees to finance these things, to expense them. And so suddenly there was a spike in expense that went across most of the employees. And we were there to support it, and to support it really well. So that's how we started to see that, we just need to sit down, assess the situation. We know that we can build anything. That I know. I'm an engineer. I'm a CTO. And everyone that knows me know that I believe that anything can be solved through technology. I don't have the tendency to hallucinate. I'm very grounded, but there are solutions. There's always solutions. That's how I think, built anything that we wanted to solve, we did solve. And I will get to it later when we talk about generative AI. Then we started to think, okay, there's no travel, but slowly, it took a few months. People did start to think about coming back to travel, and we knew that it's going to happen. We also tried to predict the type of travel that people will do. And we assumed that it would be group meetings in different locations. And so we built the group travel, which allows you to say, these are the people that I want to meet with. We know their locations. And then the system would come up with different suggestions for locations for the meeting. It became really, really popular as travel started to recover again. Another thing that we've done, which I'm actually makes me laugh. At some point, everyone was talking about the R factor, how fast the virus reproduce itself. If it's 1, it's flat. If it's less than 1, it actually decreases. It disappears. And if it's anything above than 1, it means that it is multiplying itself. It basically means every sick person, how many other sick persons it would infect. So I thought that it would make a lot of sense to build into the booking tool. As soon as you put the destination city for the hotel or for the flight, it would make sense to show you all the data that we can show you on the virus. You do what it takes when the time comes in order to, to do what's right for your customers. I think that, to me at least, the light bulb moment was when I realized that it's not complicated to understand what should we do? There's a virus, revenue went down to 0. What should we do? It is about realizing what is it or what was it that got us to the success that we had, and keep doing it. Just keep doing it. And what got us to the success, as I mentioned earlier, is the focus on the user. I think that we pushed hundreds of new features to the product. Most of them are useless now. Useless. But that's exactly the point. Who cares? And the fact that I became an epidemiologist, arguably, it's like, you're the CTO. Why on earth do you spend your time, waste your time into understanding this world? And the answer is, I'm a CTO, but I'm a co-founder of a company that is founded on the idea of serving the users and putting them in the center. It's true that as a travel company, our revenue went down to 0, but all companies got impacted, maybe except for Zoom. But they all got impacted, and we need to help them. Why? Because that's what we do. We put the users in the center. We focus on them. As I said in the first sentence, we want to give them the best service, the best experience, because that's how we win as a company, ultimately. And so that's what we've done.
No, makes total sense. So I'm listening to what you said. Obviously, like the entrepreneurial journey relates totally to Workato. All the mountains you have to climb. That there's not one mountain. There's lots and lots of mountains. I mean, we've been at it since 2013. Now, the funny thing is, like, Workato as a cloud native integration platform, we actually got a boost during COVID. All right, so we were on the other side of history. Life is unfair sometimes. Now, the funny thing is, then 2023 happened, and basically demand in a way for our product got a little hit, like a lot of technology companies had it. And the funny thing is, like, Vijay, our CEO, my co-founder, he said, Markus, that's the best thing that could have ever happened to us. He said, like, life's when life is good, everyone is good. Like, now is the moment where it's time for us to separate from the rest. So I'm curious about this. I mean, did you feel Navan as a company got stronger actually by having to face that adversity? And then maybe the one thing I also would like to hear your opinion on is, look, you and your co-founder, I mean, I think it's probably built into the DNA, right? I mean, it's just like, you guys, how you talk about it. I mean, there's nothing you can face you. I mean, you're gonna take the next mountain. I mean, Vijay is actually very much the same way. I think that's kind of in all of us. But I'm also curious about the rest of the organization. So remember, like, the audience here on the podcast is CIOs, IT leaders. If you could give them some advice, like, how can they help their company? Like, what can they do? Because maybe not everyone has that, resilience built into their DNA, just like the leaders all do.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of good points. Maybe I should mention a few more things that we've done when COVID hit. So how do you rally the company around you? It was actually very easy. a lot of people left. Who were those that left? It was primarily those that we hired during 2019. In 2019, we grew from, I remember the numbers clearly, January, 230 employees. December of 2019, 1,000 employees. And by March, 3 months later, 1,400. So we were hiring massively. It's like 230 employees that hired 1,200 employees in the course of 12 months or 14 months. That's a lot. Obviously, we made some mistakes. And it was actually interesting to see that those that left are those that joined in 2019 primarily. The core of the company did not leave. They stayed. And it pretty much created this alignment naturally. It was a natural alignment. Those that realize what the company is founded on, how we think, how we operate, stayed. They had no doubt. And the rest left. And I will tell you another thing about the DNA of my co-founder and I. I was actually very pleased to see them leaving, to be honest. So we did have multiple conversations with the entire team, sharing everything that we had to share. For example, when it became very clear to Ariel and to myself that what we should do is what we've done in the first few years of the company, just focus on the user and recognizing that the needs of the users have changed. We communicate that verbally to the entire team. And we had a conversation about an open conversation where people can ask questions. There was lots of uncertainty during that time. And the way to address it, is to have conversations. So we've done that very often. Now I remember the first few months, we had a weekly toast. And we had like a toast. There was no agenda. And people spoke, people asked questions, people made jokes. We wanted to find ways to bring people together. So that was another way to make the most out of the situation. I guess the key here is, as a human, I think in general in your personal life, but definitely as a leader and as an executive, you do not have the luxury to become a victim. You never are a victim. Things do not just happen to you. There is a reality, but you should always approach it with, I'm the executive in charge. What is it that I can do? What is it that we can do? And how do we address it? To your other question about Navan today is way, way, way stronger and more resilient as a company than what it was prior to COVID. First, we have a new product line that because of the triple or quadruple investment that we had, which was a very smart decision, it actually became a very, very meaningful new line of product with a revenue stream. It's a global product. It's growing really, really fast. We continue to innovate there with Navan Connect, for example, that we announced less than 2 years ago, that allows companies to use any credit card from any bank anywhere in the world and still enjoy the benefits of our expense system, which is no expense. We definitely are the leaders there at the moment. There is no other product like Navan Connect in the world today. We could have just decided to kill it because it made no sense. Became such a strategic opportunity for us. We grew our customer base. I think that we doubled our customer base during COVID. They did not travel, but they signed up. It was an easier transition for them because there was no travel to transition from one program to a different program, or one travel vendor to a different one. So I remember Netflix, for example, because they didn't even want to talk. It was an inbound, and they said, we get it. We just want to we want to become your customer. You don't need to sell us. That's the time for us to do it. There was just one thing that they did not like in the product that we had to change, and that's the existence of a policy. And why? Because in Netflix, there's no policy. The policies do what's best for Netflix, which I love it. So we had to remove the word policy from the product for them. So we did that. By the way, they still are a customer. They travel a lot. That's a really, really happy customer. NPS is through the roof. And they evolved to other products that we have. And again, that's thanks to COVID. Really thanks to COVID. There's lots of stories like that go back to COVID and how it started as an inbound. It was an opportunity for a lot of companies to say, okay, enough is enough. We need data. Now we see it. We cannot manage the program at the moment. And it's a good time to do it because people don't travel. So it's a good time to transition over to a modern solution.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I'm it's actually fascinating. So I'm listening to what you say. I mean, first of all, a lot of the ethos of Workato is actually very similar. So there were some, we were enterprise software. So it's kind of funny, but enterprise software is not supposed to really do the consumer focus too much, right? If you look at a lot of enterprise software, it's actually pretty bad on the consumer experience side. We actually embraced that as a challenge and said we're going to differentiate because of that. So I think there's a lot of similarities. But the one thing that also strikes me is because you said you were happy when people left, maybe people who were not that strongly in the mission or in that goal and that objective. And what I'm seeing with because Workato has all kinds of customers. We have a lot of customers like yourself, the up and coming digital natives, Forbes Cloud 100 kind of customers, and then we have very large customers as well, large enterprises. And what I see is when IT organizations get very, very large, it gets difficult because, when you have very, very large IT organization, by definition, I think not everyone is part of that core mission. I think it's almost not possible. And so sometimes what I notice is that you almost have to artificially create bottlenecks. You have to almost prune it down to the point where it's hard and difficult and you don't have enough resources. But then you make sure that only the people stay who are actually comfortable in that environment, and then you probably get more adaptable. So for the large enterprises, some of that might almost be that self-inflicted resource limitation or something to get back on track. Listen, Ilan, I wanted to. I mean, we talked about multiple mountains. Also, you got to climb, right? So we talked about COVID. So that one's that's a big one. The next one I want to talk about is not as dire. It's more of an opportunity in a way, but one that actually also requires quite a bit of adaptability. I'm talking about a GenAI now, right? So we were. In 2020, COVID happened. At the end of 2022, not that far afterwards, ChatGPT happened, right? Came out, and I think it changed the world again in a very, very different way, but it did change the world. I mean, it was an unexpected situation. I didn't see it happening as it happened, but then when you first used ChatGPT, you knew the world was different. I mean, if you're just like us doing a startup and you're starting a new startup today, I mean, if you don't use GenAI, it's almost impossible to get funding. I would argue. And then if you're a software engineer, it's also seems like you were the king before, and now it seems like there's these models that can do everything you know how to do actually really well. So I'm just curious. Talk to us about that new mountain. What obviously at Workato we did lots of things. Actually, we created co-pilots. We really made sure people can use the LLMs as part of their integration flows. We actually just came out with a new product called Workato Agentic, where we basically built intelligent agents. But what did you guys do at Navan? Like, how did you climb that mountain?
Yeah. So it's actually, you're right, it is a mountain, because the way that when I saw this technology, and obviously we did use AI since, so we found in 2016 was the first machine learning model that we deployed to production. And since then we deployed, we have more than 20 in production doing all sorts of stuff. But that's machine learning, that's more of like statistical models. Generative AI caught me by surprise. It just caught me by surprise. The capabilities of these large language models, when they become really large, it was the first model that had 174 or 5 billion parameters in it. No one has ever seen something like that before. And any expert in LLMs or whatever that claims that they were not surprised, it's a lie. It's really, it is, because the creators of ChatGPT dropped their jaws when they saw what this mega model can generate. So, and I know it firsthand. I spoke to the creators. So this is the chain of events. So ChatGPT came out. The next day, I spent maybe $30,000 on a GPU. I just pulled my personal credit card and bought, and built this mega PC. Took it with me to Malibu, and the place where I it's a very inspiring place for me. I had my personal computer there. I never used Windows before that for like years. It was all Mac. So switched to Windows. My laptop, everything was Windows. And I started to experiment with this technology. Like there was not a single model that came out, large language model that came out, that I didn't deploy immediately on my PC, trying it out, seeing what it can do, what it cannot do, taking it to the boundaries, letting two LLMs chat with each other, see what happens, experimenting with uncensored models to see, can they become nasty? Like, for example, I was so curious about these creatures. To me, it's almost like an alien. It's an alien that showed up. And, if you have an alien that you can see and touch, wouldn't you be curious to know what's inside? Like, what is it? What do they want? What do they have desires of their own? That's how I thought about it. So that's what happened. But fast forward to today, I had this journey and I kind of took Navan with me throughout this journey. The first thing that I got very curious about, and I actually launched it internally on my PC in Christmas Eve. I remember it. It was 24th of December, which was 3 weeks or 4 weeks, 3 weeks after ChatGPT was launched. That was the ability to have a ChatGPT style conversation with a bot about our data. So I could ask internal data. So I could ask, how many new customers have we onboarded in the last week? And then ask a follow-up question. Now show it to me for the last 10 weeks. And it would know to generate a graph. I experimented. It was one big experiment for me. We ended up productizing it, and we launched it to customers in February. The second thing that I had in mind was, okay, now that I have a creature that can get as an input a question in English about data, any question, and it can provide the answer. I then said, what if the person who asks the question, which normally would be me or the customers when we launch it in February, an admin that wants to know, or the CFO that wants to know the travel spend and the travel spend per category, per department, over time, blah, 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 policy violations. What if instead of having these humans ask the question, I would create another LLM and assign it a role and then give it a much more complex problem to solve? And the first problem that I asked it is, I basically created a CFO and said, you're the CFO of Navan. and you need to analyze the travel spend of Navan in the prior year and come up with an executive summary. Started with an executive summary. In order to do that, you have a data person that can help you with any data question that you have. Feel free to ask any question, and when you feel like you have enough information, come up with the executive summary. All I had to do is just facilitate this dialogue, which I did, and it was fascinating to see, because like the first question was, how much did we spend on travel? The second question was, how many employees do we have? And then it started to drill down and drill down and drill down. It was also very fascinating to see that different companies led to different. If you are a CFO of Netflix or of any other company, very quickly you get to the policy violation. As a CFO, you want to know about policy violation. And with the Netflix, the answer was 0 because there's no policy. So it was very interesting to see that there was no follow-up questions about the policy. Instead, it came up with other questions. Whereas with other customers like Navan, even when I tried it, there was a question about policy violation. Let's say that the answer was 40% policy violation. So bookings that happened outside of the policy. Then there's a follow-up question. Okay, I want to see policy violations by department. And I want to see policy violation by booking type, flights, hotel cards, rail, to see where, and kind of, get to something actionable. So it really behaved as if it acted as if it is the CFO of any company and rolled with it. And it was, I remember I was like, oh my God.
I think you almost like described what we just built with Workato a little bit. And mind you, right? So think about what Workato is. We're an integration automation platform. We're in the business. I mean, so before GenAI, what we did was you're the CIO, you have your order to cash process. How do I get that end-to-end business process step by step with all the exceptions, with all the conditions, all into a workflow, and you can touch all the different systems on the way. But it's kind of like a program. It's a visual program of how that all works. Now comes GenAI. And so you talked about this kind of virtual CFO, right? We actually talk about a digital twin of an employee. So think about, instead of describing all of these steps, many steps, and it's very complicated, these order to cash processes. It's actually a real challenge because companies and IT organizations most often actually get it wrong or get it not very well done. But now you have a whole new way to do that. What if you create like a digital twin of a sales manager and a digital twin of an order clerk and a digital twin of this finance operations person, maybe the sales compensation person, and you let them all talk to each other and you define kind of their immediate tasks of what they can do. You can actually model this order to cash process with these digital twins, with these intelligence actors in the process. And it actually changes the game of how you model your business processes. And that's what we did. So we took these LLMs and we basically gave them, Workato, that orchestration, that automation platform, as the eyes and ears to get the input, right? When they have to start thinking. And then afterwards, we give them the arms and the legs, right? What can they do? And by the way, they can talk to each other. And then once you press the button and you let it run, I mean, it's exactly what you said. I mean, it took my breath away. I mean, it's obviously you have to take a step to then actually turn this on and let it run. But when you see it run, you are in awe of what it does. So it is these aliens. As you said, like just doing the stuff. It is quite something. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting how this aligns what you guys also did. Yeah.
I'm sure that all companies went through some journey when it comes to AI, and I'm very happy to hear about what you guys have discovered and built and deployed. I think that this technology is transformative. It's going to change everything. I really believe in it. I'll jump, I had lots of experiments. I'll jump to where we are today. Today, we have a virtual travel agent that users can chat with when they have any problem and they need to change something, or they got a delay, or their plans have changed, or they have a question, or there was a refund that they thought that they're going to get but they didn't, or the amount doesn't align, or they need the invoice for whatever. So we have, as I said, we focus on the user. Focusing on the user, part of it is the service, a major part of it. And so we have agents deployed all over the world. You can contact them anytime in the day, every day, throughout the year. That obviously is very, very, it's a very complex operation. We built a virtual travel agent, and I would say I hate bots, and I think most people hate bots, because a lot of these bots do one thing really well. They annoy you. That's what they do. They don't really solve. Like, I have so many bots here that I talk over the phone, and they ask me all the questions about my life, my wife, my everything. And then when I get to the representative, they ask me the same questions again. I'm like, the only thing that you've managed to achieve or to accomplish is to annoy me even more. So I think that's the perception, and that's why I did not want to have bots. But with this technology, I could start imagining a bot that would actually do something and do it well. Today, we have a bot that all of the incoming chats go first to the bot. A lot of people don't even know that they chat with the bot because it feels that natural. And less than 50% of these chats end up with a live agent. The bot manages to solve more than that. It's huge. And by the way, very important, the bot asks for a CSAT, customer satisfaction, just like the agents do. And it is not on par with the agents, the live agent, but very close. And it is improving all the time. But most people love the bot. And very, very interesting piece of information about it is that like 2 weeks ago, one of our customer success managers reached out to me and she said, "Hey guys, do you run an A/B test or something with the bot? Because I have a customer that complains that they stopped getting the bot and they only get to live agents." And it was very true, because we did kick off an A/B test that runs constantly. And in this A/B test, some users never get to the bot. They only get a live agent, and then we can compare the groups and we can compare the CSAT and then. So this customer just ended up falling into this experiment and never getting the bot and always getting to a live agent, which should be a nirvana. And she complained, and I was puzzled, so puzzled that I decided to talk to her to see that it's real. And I spoke to her and she said, "Yes, I want the bot, and I want all of my employees in the company to have the bot, because your bot is useful and your bot is not annoying. And when your bot cannot solve it, it would move me to an agent instantly. It wouldn't torture me or anything like that. And it is such a relief to use it. It's always available and it's fast, and I trust it." So, it was like music to my ears. Being the father of this bot, it was music to my ears. And I'm going to work with her more closely and to actually establish a group of customers like her to get more ideas and brainstorm together and make it even better. But that's where we are today with this technology. I do want to tell you one very important thing about it. LLMs do hallucinate. And for those who don't know, hallucinations is when you chat with ChatGPT or Claude or any one of these big LLMs, and then they tell you something that is a complete nonsense. And then you correct them and they say, "Oh, you're right, I apologize. In fact, blah, blah, blah," and they correct themselves. It is called hallucination. It's a byproduct of having such a big neural network and the way that it works. They also have attention problems. So if you give it a prompt with one sentence, it would obey. If you give 2 sentences, it would obey. If you give 100, then the LLMs are likely to lose attention to those that are in the middle. LLMs bring a lot of greatness, and new capabilities that are jaw-dropping that like we all experienced in November of 2022. But they also bring problems, hallucinations, attention problems, biases, inconsistencies. You can ask the same question 4 times, 5 times, and you might get different answers. So I just imagine, that today our virtual travel agent takes the role of at least 50% of our agents. And I cannot imagine me interviewing agents for the role where they would tell me, yeah, I'm fluent in 200 languages and I know everything pretty much that happened in humankind since forever. But sometimes I lie. That's the hallucinations. And I lie with a lot of confidence. Sometimes I will not pay attention to what I need to do, which is the attention problem that LLMs have. Sometimes I would say yes and sometimes no. That's the inconsistencies. I would not hire any agent that would tell me these things, and no one would. So, by definition, I could not imagine deploying a virtual travel agent that is based on LLMs the way they are today. And so that's why the first thing that I did is building what I call internally Navan cognition, which is a framework that is based on LLMs and with a lot of dialogues and things that happen in between inside this framework. It pretty much solves for all of these problems. And how much does it solve? It solves it to the level that I feel confident to hire these agents and let them work with our customers and talk to them about refunds that they will get and what not to expect, and to be able to extend their hotel stay by 2 days and to do it in the most cost efficient way, and then to tell them no when no is appropriate, and then so and this framework is so revolutionary that first I got the interest of a professor from Colombia to co-author a scientific paper about that and the biological brain, which is the area that this professor researches. And the second thing is I'm actually thinking to open source it and let other companies use it, because I think that I am all for LLMs and I'm all for generative AI. I think that it would make our life so much better. And I want to see more and more usage and adoption of this technology. And I think that all of the learnings that we've had, that we've applied towards this cognition system, could be really helpful and useful by many other companies.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds good. I think you almost like answered the last question that was on my mind, but it might be good to like very quickly hear from you in your own voice, because look, the situation that we're seeing when we go out to customers, IT organizations, that is, they have maybe their boards, the CEO come to them about GenAI, and people are excited, just like you and me, about it. But then the IT organizations often, they still have this wait and see mentality. I mean, they're maybe a little more risk averse.
Right.
We talked about the hallucinations and all of these things. But if you could give them a word of wisdom, what would it be? What would you tell the IT organizations? Maybe that cognition system that you built could actually help them. But what is there? What do you think they should do?
Yes, the cognition system could definitely work, but I think your question is way more important, and the answer is very generic. There's new technologies all the time. I've been exposed to new technologies since I was seriously 7 years old when I started developing. There is always new technologies, and I'll tell you one thing: they all have problems. Java 1 had lots of out of memory problems. The garbage collector did not work well. So what? Should you not adopt it? If you did not adopt it, you already created a gap with competitors, because it was a revolutionary technology back then. It made development so much faster. And today, I do not know a lot of web servers that are developed on C++. At some point, it was Java. And then Microsoft tried with C#, and today obviously there is a TypeScript and lots of other in Python, but Java won against C++ for that, not for everything. So here's my take. Technologies, just like everything in life, they have the good things that they bring and they have limitations. You need to apply the right tool to the right problem. For example, do not take Java 1 and deploy it on a head of a missile that guides the missile, because the first out of memory, it can explode on your head. Don't do that. But can you use it in a Java applet in the browser? Absolutely, because if there is anything, you just refresh the page, nothing happened. So that's one thing. Second, always try these new technologies. Be aware of their problems. Don't be stupid about it. Like, be aware of the problems. Like, if I need to know that there's hallucinations, I need to know. And then find ways to walk around the technology. Just like I gave with the Java example. Don't use this technology, Java 1, for something that is mission critical. But there's so many other things that you can use it for. With LLMs, either find a way to solve it. By the way, the direction that I took, which obviously evolved a lot, to identify hallucinations, for example, to address this problem, is with LLMs. Because part of the phenomena is that the ChatGPT can tell you something that is a complete nonsense, but then you correct it, and it corrects itself. It said, you are absolutely right. It would never argue and insist on the hallucinations. So based on that, I basically said, if there is another LLM that monitors and reviews and looks for hallucinations, it would find them. And guess what? It does. So, technologies have advantages and disadvantages. Do not reject them because they have disadvantages. If you do, you might miss the biggest technology. For example, LLMs is the biggest technology revolution for this decade, or for the past few decades, I would say. Yeah, you cannot just reject it because it has some problems. Always embrace the new technologies. Don't be stupid. Be familiar with the limitations, and then come up with solutions. Be creative, read about it, talk to colleagues, adopt some open source projects, etc. But do not ignore it, because you will hurt yourself and your company.
Yeah, no, I think it's just too big an opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, Ilan. I mean, first of all, thank you so much for speaking to the audience here today. I kind of expected this, but it was truly inspirational. I really do think, and I really hope that the IT audience here that we have takes away a couple of lessons and kind of like internalizes your journey, the entrepreneurial spirit that you have, and brings that into the IT domain. I think there's a lot that can be done better and differently, but it was just a joy to hear from you. So thank you so much, Ilan.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Please make sure to rate today's episode, leave us a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the show so you will never miss an episode. I'll see you next time.